What if you could not only fire your drummer, but fire your bassist? Let's check it out. Everything you just heard was 100% real guitar and 100% fake bass and drums. But before I show you what I used for the bass and drums in that track, I'm going to give you a quick micro home studio tour.
Cool. You know the jungle has its rules, and I just try to keep it cool, and I'll be treated like a tool. So don't be acting like a fool.
So before I get a lot of angry people in the comments, I'm not actually saying you should fire your drummer or your bassist, because in general, having a full band is a very awesome experience, and I did it for years. And an actual bassist will write bass lines that are typically better than a guitarist writing bass lines, because it's the only thing they're doing. So they're gonna make it as good as they can. Same for a drummer; they're doing drums, so naturally they care about the drums. They're gonna put more work into it than you. Let's say you're a guitarist and you're doing everything. They're gonna put more work into it, and even if you put more work into it yourself, that's all they do. They focus on drums. So the two tools that I'm using in this track is Get Good Drums, Modern and Massive, and there's Shreddage 3 Precision. I'm not going to spend most of this video talking about Modern and Massive because there's plenty of great drum libraries, and for years I used Superior Drummer, and I really liked it. But now I switched to pretty much only using Get Good Drums. But I'm not gonna go over that too much. But I'll show you a little bit as we go through. And then next, Shreddage 3 Precision. I've used a couple Native Instruments bass libraries before, the stock ones that come with Complete, and I've never been fully satisfied with them. They got the job done, but they weren't enough. And I like Shreddage 3 Precision. You know, I do have a good bass, and I can track good bass, but this is easier, and it's more flexible, and it's still me writing it. So I think for a lot of applications, I'm going to be using Shreddage 3 bass instead of playing my own bass when it's easier. If you're trying to make a quickie song like this for a YouTube video, making bass with this might sound better than me getting a bass, playing the part physically, tracking it multiple times, and then mixing it and getting good. This is going to sound good right out of the gate, and it's going to be perfect, and I can always change things later without retracking. So that's my application of a library like this. But it sounds very good, and the way it works, at least the way I'm using it, because it's the way I thought it sounded best, it's just a VST track. You throw it on, it's just an instance of Kontakt, and then I just have plugins loaded in it. So in this case, it sounded dry to me. I don't know if it's actually completely dry, but I didn't see anything in here about an amp. So what I did is I loaded it through Darkglass, which is a great kind of virtual pedal emulation. Oh, let me make this smaller. Oh, it's a virtual pedal emulation. And it also has an actual, like, cab. So it's a full amp simulation, basically. And I typically use this for my normal bass as well. So I'm getting a sampled raw bass and putting it through an effect chain I would use, and I think that's one way that it's adding to the authenticity. Now, in this case, I'm using this just the very bare minimum what this library can do. So first, let me just solo the main riff of this song so you can hear what it sounds like by itself. And I'm going to go through some of the drum stuff in a bit in case that's one of the things you're most interested in. But for now, I'm going to focus on this bass. Let me turn off the metronome. I'll actually turn off Darkglass so you can hear what it sounds like just by itself. So, yeah, it sounds great, and let me strip it down even more. That's 100% raw. So it sounds very good. You can hear the clacking of the strings, but it's not too annoying. You can hear the releases, and you can see here it actually simulates what frets you're playing. And this was the part that kind of blew my mind the most about this library, is that you can actually choose what string you want to force, So in this case, I'm not forcing anything, but I could actually say I want to force everything to be on the A string when possible, and it'll sound different. In this case, it definitely does not sound better. Now I can force it on the E, then that doesn't give me some of the brighter poppy sounds of the higher strings. And so it actually plays it differently. I don't think it sounds as natural, so I went with this 4-string off. You can even change the hand position to kind of give yourself a default fret area that the virtual bassist should stick to. Now, I'm actually using a quad multi-track. You can actually turn off any one of these layers you want, and it'll drastically affect the sound. I'll put the dark glass back on to get the full volume, but this is just one instance. It sounds very good. I can stack it. Now, dark glass is forcing all of these back down to mono, but if I just play all, I'll do all 1 and then all 4. You get a stereo field of bass, which is not something I've ever thought of doing, but it's cool that they give you the option. Now, this library goes through a crazy amount of detail. There's hand size, hammer-on range, minimum preferred fret, maximum preferred fret, and then you can go into articulations and you can change some more sliders to get more realistic sound. Same for performance, there's some more parameters. And then there's a strum mode, which I'm never really interested in strum mode, so I just didn't look at it. I'm sure it's very impressive, just like the rest of this library. And then there's this advanced section which gives you like release control timing and hand reset, popping, time variation. And there's pickup controls and actual pickup selector that's built in. Now, at the bottom, there's a console, which I believe this is just an actual stack of effects from Kontakt that are built in, which is convenient. And then you can go into this Takt, which is their articulation setup. So the way libraries like this work, if I can turn on my keyboard here, is that there's things mapped to the keys at the bottom. So if I click a note, it's playing with a certain articulation. I can say I want to switch to staccato slapped. And that's going to sound much different from harmonics, of course. And playing the harmonics is pretty cool, actually. Oh, I actually hit another keystroke. So it's a very different sound than everybody used to. And so there's a lot of control in this. So I'll just kind of walk you through at a top view. Sustained fingered, sustained picked, sustained slapped, staccato fingered, staccato slapped, mute fingered, mute picked, harmonics, tapping, buzz trill, effects. There's also some slide effects, play noise. So if I play these two notes, just kind of normal sustained fingered, I'll do a hammer on. But if I hold the slide key, it actually does a kind of slide, which is pretty neat. And then up here, you actually have performance of your force string mode. So in the middle of, let's say you're really good at playing the keys, or you want to MIDI map something, you can actually program in those force string modes, which is pretty great because having the force E might only be applicable for part of a song. And then if you want to have multiple ones of those, you'd have to actually just copy that and do different things. So it's nice that they included that because that eliminates a lot of extra instances. You can change the pick mode. I've been doing typically, I think, economy, which is just going to do like whatever makes the most sense. But in this case, I wanted to have that downstroked sound because that really does sound different in some cases. And then you also have control of the fretting mode, which I didn't even touch, which is actually a very cool thing. Oh, here we go. So it wasn't doing polyphony because I had this mono lead mode on, but now... Of course, bass doesn't always lend itself well to chords, but if I do something like this... It's a very unique sound, and bands use that. So that's very cool that you can switch between those modes, which, again, it's down here, so in the middle of an actual MIDI clip or performance, you could switch to this, which is great. So I'll jump real quick to Get Good Drums, Modern Massive, but if you want to learn more about Shreddage 3 Precision, check the link in the description. You can head to their page and see if you want to pick it up. There'll be pricing and description and stuff there as well. All right, so this is what Get Good Drums Modern Massive sounds like. Most of the time, you're going to be looking at the full kit, but I actually have this set up for multi-out. Now, this isn't in Kontakt 6. Someone mentioned in a comment on a video, the Kontakt 6 is kind of a pain. I'm going to look into that and cover it in a different video, but right now I'm focusing on this. So this is the main interface that shows the full instrument, and basically it's just a very good drum sample library. The reason why I think it's very good: Superior Drummer, fantastic drum sampling software. Superior Drummer 3, also fantastic. I wish it wasn't like 250 gigabytes, but it gives you a lot of control. The problem is, it's too much control for what I need. When I open Get Good Drums, it just works right away. I don't really have to do as much to it. I have used it pretty much raw in things that I throw on the internet, not necessarily final songs, although I actually have used it in final releases. But it just works like right away. So you have your normal kind of thing in drum sampling software. You can click the snare and pick from a list of snares. You can go to your kick, pick from a list of kicks, and etc. that goes through the kit. You can go into each one of these different pages that segregate the different main categories, for example, kick, snare, toms, cymbals. And in these windows, you have a little mixer where I can blend or control the volume of the kick sound, blend the sub into it, and then you have overhead, room, mics that are related to this track. So if I go to snare, you'll see a very similar thing: snare top, snare bottom, and then overhead and rooms. Toms, same deal. And cymbals, it's a little more broken up: hats, ride, and then overhead, room close, room far. So I guess it's not actually more broken up. And then go into the settings just to show you how this works real quick. You can change any of these things you don't like. For example, if you don't want C0 to be the kick, you want C1 to be the kick, you can change it here. You can load and save different presets that you have for how you want your mappings. In your overheads, you can determine the actual volumes in those LDC and SDC. So if I went in here, there's overhead LDC, overhead SDC, and each one of these pages, you can control that there. And then in the room mics, you get the same level of control, which is nuts. I've never had to go into these menus before. You can control the velocity for different instruments. So if you don't want a linear thing, go to kick, you can actually change how the velocity sensitivity responds. And then you have a groove player, which I haven't touched. It's just a thing, so I'll actually just touch it for the first time here. You can play loops. It's a cool thing. It's not what I want. I think they actually sell packs of this, so if this is what you're about, maybe you'll like this stuff. Then there's an about page. So it's a drum sampler. The reason why I love it so much is just because it works very well out of the box, and it fits a somewhat niche between rock and metal. It works very good for rock, and it works very good for metal. They do have Invasion, which is a very good heavy metal, or I guess like gent, harder types of metal, like Periphery or something. Now, they do also have a Matt Halpern signature, which gives you the actual sound from their albums, Periphery's albums. So, just some context, Get Good Drum is founded by the ex-bassist of Periphery, and he still works with them to get their sounds and bring them to these awesome drum libraries. So if I play you this section here with just the drums, now I did a reasonable amount of manual velocity changes and kind of humanization, but I didn't go overboard. You know, I went in, I randomized some repetitive hits just a tiny bit, and I manually edited some other things just a tiny bit to add some more life to the takes. And then what I did is I'm on the main track here, I have this imported as a 16 out channel thing, and then at least in Logic, it's very simple. You can just click this plus button and it'll keep adding stereo tracks. Now, it gets a little trickier inside of Get Good Drums. I'm not going to make this a tutorial on this, but just to kind of give you perspective, Get Good Drums has a great tutorial on this. But what you do is inside of Kontakt, you click this window thing, then you click Outputs. I'll get rid of the keyboard so it's a little more clear. And what you can do is you can hit this plus button and you can create all these different tracks down here. It's pretty much one click inside of Kontakt. And then name them so they show up in some kind of real way. I'll turn that off, and then inside each one of these pages, you can actually route to those individual tracks. Now the reason you want to do that is because that input is going to correspond just kind of in sequential order to these actual tracks. So now I can treat these individual elements, kick, kick sub, snare top, snare bottom. So let me know in the comments what you thought of these libraries, or if you know any better ones that maybe I should check out. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and ring that bell, because I upload videos every single Tuesday and Friday, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.